Here is an example of what the double loop looks like when it's done as an applique on this belt strip. Now we're going to do the same thing on this one to show you how this is done. Before we actually do our lacing, there are a few preliminaries we should talk about. One is to condition your lace. You'll notice that I have here a piece of sheep wool. I have put some leather conditioner on there. It could be any one of a number of conditioners. It could be Lexol, be Dr. Jackson's Hide Rejuvenator. It could be mink oil. It could be the Aussie conditioner. Any conditioner will work. This makes your lace softer and easier to handle and will lay down much better. To do decorative lacing, we will go through the holes probably at least twice, sometimes more. So we want to make sure we have a needle that's nice and flat, so we'll use the two-prong needle, and we will do several things to make that easier. One, we'll take a stencil knife and cut a point on our lace. And now we will come back about a ½ inch and very carefully split the lace and taper it down to where it's just a feather edge at the point. Now we're ready to put it into the needle. To insert the lace into the needle, it's best to kind of hold it between your two fingers as you see me here, and then open it with your thumbnail, slide the lace in past the two prongs and not too far in because we don't want to spread this needle. Then you can take a pliers and squeeze it, or if you want you can lay it on your marble and tap it with your mallet. Frankly, I prefer to use a pliers. On many occasions when doing the applique lace, you'll find it necessary to do splicing. Number one, it's not a good idea to have more than 36 inches of lace, at the most 48 inches at one time, because as you pull it through the holes, it will tend to wear and deteriorate. So let's learn to do what I'll call a cement splice. Now, this is better than most other splices because you can use it in any situation. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my stencil knife and very carefully split this lace in half from top to bottom. I'm skiving it down and get to a feather edge. Now I may have to come back and take a little more back here. I want to have about an inch. Now this was off the top side. Now the other piece, we'll take it off the bottom side. And we'll take about the same length, about 1 inch. This will take a little practice. If you haven't done it before, don't get discouraged. It'll be something that you will need to learn. Here again, come back and get about an inch and make sure it goes to the feather edge. Okay, now I like to use contact cement to do this, so you'll notice I have a paper towel here, and I'll just take my brush and brush some on both ends as you see me here. Now I will let this dry until it's tacky, then we'll put it together. We have allowed our cement to dry until it's tacky, so now we can stick the two pieces together. So very carefully line them up and stick them down. Now, if you want, you can take your mallet and tap it lightly. Now I would just wait a few more minutes and you're ready to lace. To begin punching for our stitching, here's a few things I need to point out. Now, on this one, you'll notice here I have a pre-embossed belt, and I'm going to do a double cordovan overlay stitch on here, or a double cordovan applique. And so I need to have my holes about a ½ inch apart. And of course we have punched them with a 1/8 inch thonging chisel because that's the size lace we're going to use. If we're going to use a smaller lace or a larger lace, we would punch holes of the corresponding size. Now, to punch on this particular one here, this one you notice I've already hand tooled the border, and if I make a mark in here, I've set my dividers up at about 1/2 inch, so I'll make a little mark right here in the center. Now that tells me about where my guidelines should be, so I'll come over here and set up my wing divider to hit right on that line. So now I can make a guideline on this side, turn it, make a guideline down the other side. Now we can begin our punching. We will cut our holes right on these lines now on both sides. Make sure you get all the way through the leather, but don't try to go too deep. Only deep enough so that you get through. We're not punching holes in the board, we're punching holes in the leather. When punching this second row of holes, make sure that you are directly positioned across from the one on the other side. This is very important. Make sure you start properly, and you can check it occasionally to make sure you're still in the right position. If you are joining two pieces of leather together, as you see here, make sure when you punch your holes that you end up with the proper width here between holes for the size of the lace you're using, and make sure that your holes match up perfectly from side to side. Otherwise, it's no different than doing it on a solid piece of leather. Here is an example of what the double loop looks like when it's done as an applique on this belt strip. Now we're going to do the same thing on this one to show you how this is done. When doing an applique lacing, it's very important to have a fit to enlarge holes, because and many times we'll be coming from the back to the front, and it's especially important to get these holes opened up, as you see me doing here, so that it's much easier to get through from the back. It's not a bad idea also to fit the holes in the front. You'll find it to be very helpful. So now let's begin doing the double loop here. Begin with, we'll come from the inside out, as you see here, from the second hole down, inside out. Then we would go across into the first hole on the other side. Now, we will come over the top, as you see here. We'll go through that first hole from the inside out. Now we will go down to the second hole on the other side. And we now have a cross, as you can see. Now I will turn it over, go through the second hole, or the third hole, on the back side. Notice now, as I do that, I am securing the end. See, I've got the end tied in there. Now I will come over. Here now I will go through the loop, or shall I say through the X. Through the X. Now I go through the X, Pull this up snug. Now I will go over and through the next hole down. Now I'll turn it over, go over and through the next hole from the back side to the front, or from the inside out. Now I go back through the cross one more time, pull it up snug, and I go down the next hole, as you see now from the back. I go over the top from that next hole and go out, making sure that I'm tying down the end as I go. Turn it over, go through the cross, pull it up snug, come over it, go down through the next hole. Now we will continue to do this the same way all the way to the end of our lacing. As you might suspect, you will surely need to do several splices. As we reach the other end of our project, we'll just continue as we did before. Going out the last hole from the back. Go back through the cross as always. We go down through the last hole from front to back. Then it's just a matter of flipping it over. Take your needle and go down under 4 or 5 stitches, as you see me doing here, and bring it out. And just cut it off. Now, it's a good idea to take a mallet and pound the lace down flat. I have a real nice applique on a 1.5 inch belt.